Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Carol Hay. I'm CTO's Director for UK and Europe, and I'll be your moderator for this afternoon. It's with great pleasure that I invite the Secretary General of the Caribbean Tourism Organization, Hugh Riley, to the stage to make the official welcome to you all.
Thank you very much, Carol. Honourable Ministers, I recognize in the front row the Honourable Portia Stubbs-Smith, the Minister of Tourism for Turks and Caicos. Next to her is Minister Irenia Arundel of Dutch St. Martin, the Honourable Yolande Bain-Horsford of Grenada, Mr. Rodney George, who is the new chairman of the Grenada Tourism Authority, and Mr. Rudy Grant, who is the CEO of the Grenada Tourism Authority. Just entering is Minister Jean Rogers Vanterpool of Dutch St. Martin. Other ministers, directors, CEOs, officials, students, our inspiring speaker who's going to be properly introduced in a minute, our panel of judges who will also be properly introduced in a minute, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to what is always such an exciting part of Caribbean Week in New York. Caribbean Week is an exposition of the color and the culture and the history and the food and the rhythm and the fun and the vacation special offers of the Caribbean. It's always a delicate choreography of all kinds of moving parts, and right in the middle of it, there's this students' colloquium. There's this opportunity for the young people of the Caribbean and of Caribbean heritage to teach us a few things, to tell us about creativity, to tell us how they see us, how they see the world, how they see the tourism economy. The first thing that I really would like to say is that we are here to learn from you. The second thing is that there are only winners. The competition is intense. Somebody is going to get 1 point or 2 points more than the next person. Everyone is a winner. And I'd like, with your permission, to ask for the loudest round of applause for every contestant this evening that you possibly can muster up. Let's give them a round of applause. On behalf of the Chairman of the Council of Ministers and Commissioners of Tourism, the Honourable Richard Seeley, it is such a pleasure and an honour for me now to officially declare this open and to turn it back over to our MC, Carol Hay.
Thank you very much, Hugh. Now, it's always important that when we have our young people in our presence, we invite motivational speakers to join us and to share their wealth of knowledge and experience. So it's with great pleasure that I introduce today's motivational speaker, Joanna Geraghty. Joanna is JetBlue's Executive Vice President of Customer Experience, responsible for airports, customer support, reservations, and in-flight service, the airline's main customer-facing teams. Ms. Geraghty served as JetBlue's Executive Vice President, Chief People Officer from 2010 to 2014, and was previously the airline's Vice President and Associate General Counsel and Director of Litigation and Regulatory Affairs. She has been with the New York-based airline since 2005. Before joining JetBlue, Ms. Geraghty was a partner at the law firm of Holland & Knight in their litigation section in New York. She received her BA from the College of the Holy Cross in 1994, her Master's in International Relations from Syracuse University's Maxwell School of Citizenship and Public Affairs in 1997, and her JD from Syracuse University College of Law in 1997. So it's with great pleasure with that introduction, that formal introduction, that I now warmly ask you to welcome Joanna to the stage so that she can share her knowledge and her experience with us, and I'm sure her humour as well. Thank you so much, and welcome, Joanna.
Well, that was an absolutely lovely introduction. I don't think I've had anybody go through all of my education, so always a first. Good evening, ministers, directors of tourism, and most importantly, our students that are here today. This is about you and about the future and about what you're going to convince all of us to do as I think the next large project into the Caribbean in the world of sustainability. Welcome to New York City. For those who don't know, JetBlue is New York's hometown airline. We are the only airline that has its headquarters actually based in New York City. Raise your hand if you've flown JetBlue. Anybody fly JetBlue? So yes, most of the room. So that's good news for us, right? We've got something going on in the Caribbean, I think. So 16 years ago, JetBlue was founded. And we had a mission of bringing humanity back to air travel. And that was about delivering a great service at a great price. Largely a reflection on the industry at that time that frankly didn't take care of customers, but even more importantly, didn't take care of the employees or at JetBlue crew members that in turn take care of customers. And so we started with that mission and we think we are well on our way there. It's great to be speaking before the Caribbean Tourism Organization. For those who don't know, JetBlue was originally founded as purely a domestic airline, and the Caribbean was actually not even part of our original plan. And wow, how things have changed there. We learned very quickly in the airline industry that you need to stay flexible, you need to evolve, and most importantly, you need to stay relevant. And if you consider the airlines that existed back in 1999 and 2000 when JetBlue was founded, so many of them are actually gone today. And so I think JetBlue has positioned itself uniquely to really not just succeed, but thrive. And part of that is because we evolved and realized very quickly that the Caribbean was a rich place, not just rich in terms of dollars, but a rich place culturally that we wanted our customers to see and explore. Today, we have, we'll actually exceed 1,000 flights daily this summer. We fly to over 20 nations in the Caribbean. 1/3 of our flights are actually in the Caribbean, and we touch nearly 2 million tourists every year. We fly into the Caribbean. We are the largest airline in the Dominican Republic and in Puerto Rico. So clearly a very, very important part of JetBlue's route network, but a very, very important part of our future and our business plan. Because we are so deeply rooted in the Caribbean, sustainability in the islands and in the Caribbean is a very important part of our DNA. And we are looking at a number of projects so that we ensure we're giving back and we're supporting the countries in the Caribbean in the right ways. I want to applaud the CTO teams here tonight who are tackling some of these important issues. It's so vitally important for this region to make sure that we're leaving the right footprint in the environment and that we're improving conditions in our beaches and on our waters, because tourism is such an important part of that region. So I wanted to talk a little bit about JetBlue's sustainability programs. As I mentioned, 1/3 of our network touches the Caribbean. And we know that communities and the economy do much better when there are clean oceans and ecosystems to support tourism in those locations. We have 3 principal areas that we are focused on at JetBlue in terms of our environmental program in the Caribbean. The first is reducing the demand for the illegal wildlife trade. The second is measuring the value of the shoreline and clean beaches. So how do you actually connect that customers will pay more to go to countries that maintain clean beaches and a clean shoreline? And then third, reducing greenhouse gas emissions and addressing climate change. First, I wanted to talk a little bit about wildlife trafficking. Earlier this year, JetBlue signed a partnership with the Fish and Wildlife Services Organization in the United States. Obviously, removing animals from their natural habitat has a very deleterious impact on the environment and also would dissuade tourists from traveling to many of those locations. And that's frankly what makes so many of these areas very appealing. And so we felt that it was important to partner with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Organization in terms of an educational campaign so that tourists understand why it's important not to remove animals from their natural habitat. We're going to be running an online video. So for those who have flown JetBlue, you know we have lots of TVs on our flights, and it's free. So we're going to be including an online educational awareness campaign, and then also looking for ways that we can promote and advocate awareness in this area through social media and other communication channels. The second area is protecting the health of the Caribbean waters. So it's difficult to actually establish that there is a revenue benefit in maintaining healthier beaches and waters. It's a bit of a tenuous connection. And so JetBlue has partnered with the Ocean Foundation to engage in a series of studies where we look at trying to connect RASM, which is the principal revenue metric airlines use, revenue per available seat mile, with the underlying drivers of a clean ecosystem. So think water quality, mangroves, and waste, and those things that drive those underlying ecosystems, and how maintaining that in a responsible way will ultimately lead to customers choosing to pay more to fly to those locations that have cleaner beaches and cleaner waters. We're also looking at sargassum and the seaweed epidemic that touched much of the Caribbean in 2015, and how we can contribute to cleaning that up, because obviously that will dissuade travelers from visiting locations that have that kind of seaweed. And then obviously Cuba, we've looked and have applied for service to several locations in Cuba. And if you think about the amount of beaches that are in Cuba, it's actually more than what you see in all of Florida. It's going to be so important to ensure that we're ahead of these issues as the Cuban borders open up to U.S. tourism. And then finally, climate change. We obviously, as an airline, play our part in contributing to some of the climate change challenges through the emission of greenhouse gas emissions. One of the things that we're focusing on is how can we reduce that footprint, and also how can we avoid coral bleaching, because obviously people come to scuba dive and explore areas in the Caribbean that have beautiful coral reefs, so we want to ensure that those maintain, so that those are intact and not further damaged. A few of the things that we're doing in that regard, we've actually offset 1 billion pounds of carbon dioxide emissions. We've focused on renewable energy. We actually are trialing electric ground service equipment in certain parts of the United States, and at some point hope to bring that much further. And then next generation technology. So you hear a lot in the United States about air traffic control and how it's antiquated. Well, part of next generation is how do you reduce the stage length of flights so that you can reduce your carbon footprint, so you fly less, right? So that's another significant area. And then we've also spent quite an amount of tickets flying scientists down to the Caribbean to help restore some of the coral reefs and focus on some of the environmental impact on the coral reefs. From JetBlue's perspective, not only does environmental focus make business sense, but it also makes a lot of people sense. And as the airline whose mission is to inspire humanity, it makes a lot of sense for JetBlue, because we're not just about inspiring humanity in the air, we're about inspiring humanity on the ground and in the communities that we serve. So this is a motivational speech, so I'm going to pivot a little bit and talk about careers and some of the things that I've learned for the students in the group, just as a way of reflecting as you embark on your career, which is such an exciting thing. So whether it's sustainability or hospitality, the careers in the travel and tourism industry are absolutely endless. And it's really exciting to see many of you considering a career in this industry. When I went to university, I absolutely did not think that I would ever work for an airline. It wasn't the first thing on my mind. And now I find myself running, a department with 13,000 crew members that support an airline. And so you have to think big and you have to think differently, because what you set out to do today might not actually be where you end up. I actually initially got my start in the airline industry by taking a job with a small law firm that focused on aviation law. So I spent a lot of time at small claims court at night managing lost baggage claims. So that's how I started my career and took it from there. In the United States, there was a television show called Night Court. I don't know if that ever made it. So Night Court actually exists. It's in New York City. It's called Small Claims Court. And depending on the age of the plaintiff, you either go go to court during the day or you go to court at night. And as a young associate in my first firm, I spent a lot of time in Brooklyn, in the Bronx, and in Queens going to night court, helping a variety of airlines, including some of our Caribbean partner airlines, through some of their lost baggage claims. So you never know where you're going to start. And that probably took me much further than most careers in my most positions I've had, and ultimately I became hooked. As Carol mentioned, I've been here at JetBlue for 11 years. I've had a number of different roles. I worked in our legal department, managing all of our litigation and regulatory matters. I became the Associate General Counsel. Then I moved into our people department as Chief People Officer. At JetBlue, we call the people department, it's human resources, so all of the HR functions that you would typically see. And then about 2 years ago, I stepped into this role, overseeing all of our airports. We fly to 90 plus locations in the Caribbean and in North America, and then all of our in-flight crew members and all of our reservation agents. So a lot of people in my department, which makes coming to work every day and trying to motivate our crew members the most exciting part about my job. One thing I did learn is with each new job, it's pretty scary, right? I mean, you start out, it's sort of outside of your comfort zone, and you just take the leap and go and hope like heck you're going to work hard and it's all going to work out. But if you don't take risks, it's not going to get you very far in life. The other thing I learned is you need to build a team of experts, and I have two of them in the room with me. So for all of you who have questions about our sustainability program, Sophia and Sarah can go really deep. I was actually nervous when I heard there were students here because I figured you guys could go really deep on some of these programs, and I, for one, can go kind of deep, but not as deep as Sarah and Sophia can go. So feel free to talk with them on the break about any questions you may have about our program. Some of you guys can give a little wave so they know who you are. They're our sustainability mavens. At JetBlue, we place a very large emphasis on culture and taking care of people. And one of the things that Dave Barger, who was originally going to be here, taught me was that the tone is set at the top. And you need leaders who believe in a mission. You need leaders who believe that the people at the company are going to make things tick, and they ultimately set the tone. And I've always taken that to heart as I lead my own teams. I've also learned that there's a lot of different types of leadership styles. So as you embark on your career, you need to think very carefully about who you want to work for and what leadership style works, knowing you're going to learn different things from every different type of leadership style. But ultimately, what kind of leader do you want to be? Dave talked a lot when I worked for him about servant leadership. The former head of HR at AT&T, which was a large phone company in the United States, actually is considered the father of servant leadership. And servant leadership is about putting the you before me, so putting the people who work for you before you as the leader. It's about selling, so explaining why, not telling. We've all had people tell us just do it because I said so. Well, I think this generation of millennials likes to understand why and the explanation behind the cause. Being open to diverse opinions because everybody has something to ultimately contribute to the discussion. Communicate. I think most of the leaders in the room would say they probably can't communicate enough. And at JetBlue, we say, if you think you've communicated enough, triple it, because chances are somebody didn't hear what you were trying to say. Creating an environment that is one built on trust and caring. As an airline that is focused on inspiring humanity, your culture and your company, like JetBlue, need to be rooted in trust and caring. And ultimately, fairness, in my mind, is the highest compliment. Let's face it, we all have people that we like better than others, but at the end of the day, treating everybody equally is so critically important to establishing yourself as a leader. Being deeply committed to the growth of your team. If you work for somebody who's not deeply committed to your own personal growth, you either need to take it into your own hands and run with it, or you need to find somebody that's going to help you focus on your growth and your development. And at the end of the day, people want to work for a company or an institution that's bigger than themselves, that has a deeper sense of meaning and a bigger purpose. And I think talking about sustainability in the environment, most organizations in that field squarely fit that bill, but sometimes it's harder to make that connection. And so as a leader, how do you create that sense of purpose for your employees? How do you create that sense of being and sense of belonging? At JetBlue, there were a lot of opportunities presented for me along the way. We've talked about our sustainability programs. Education is another significant platform. We have a foundation at JetBlue called the JetBlue Foundation, and the focus is about ensuring that we're educating the next generation in science, technology, engineering, and math, primarily in underrepresented communities, so women, minorities, and veterans, and making sure that students consider careers in aviation, consider careers in science and math, because it's so critical to our industry to make sure that there are students, and there are diverse students, that are exploring careers in that way. And actually, this year we gave our first grant to a Caribbean organization, the Inter-American University of Puerto Rico, to focus on a mentoring program for girls so that they will explore careers in the airline and aerospace industry. So at JetBlue, I hope you've seen it's not just about inspiring humanity in the air. It's about inspiring humanity on the ground and making sure that we're giving back in the right ways. We think a lot about the next generation. I have an 8-year-old at home, so I think a lot about the next generation, and I think about the community, and I think about the environment and the footprint that I'm comfortable with us leaving. What kind of environment do we want to leave our children? What kind of industry? Do we want an industry that's all white men, or do we want an industry that's full of many different people with many different backgrounds, socioeconomically, ethnically, that add to the richness of this, wonderful industry that we're all a part of? And then to just wrap things up, I thought maybe a quick, in no kind of particular order, lessons learned from me for the students, so that you can think about sort of some of the things as you embark on your careers, about obstacles and things that you may confront. So a couple bits of wisdom. So here goes. Never lose sight of where you came from and the people who have shaped you. All of those things add to who you are, and it's going to add to creating a really unique footprint for whatever company or organization you go to. Be who you are. Say what you feel, say what you think, and don't be afraid of it. And if you work for somebody that doesn't care about your opinion, find another job. Dream big, be willing to fail, because you will, and you'll fail once and twice, and you'll continue to fail, and I fail every day, and sometimes failing is a really good thing because you learn from failing, but make sure you get back up. It's just as important. Don't be afraid to take risks. I think women in particular sometimes are afraid to take risks. They don't actually take that job until they have all of the criteria and they're like 100% confident they can do it. Don't be afraid. Take risks. You'll never know if you could do it unless you try. Be nice to everybody. Be humble. You are as valued and as important as everyone else, but not 1 ounce more. And then finally, no great things are achieved without a lot of hard work. So put in those extra hours at your age and at your stage, hopefully is where you can find the time. Once you start having families and kids, it gets harder. So when you find those pockets and those moments to put in that little extra effort, make sure you do, because nobody ever succeeded because they put in an extra few hours. So with that, I wish the best of luck to all the contestants. Thank you for the honor to speak tonight, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful symposium. Thank you.
And thank you, Joanna, for taking the time to share with us. Now, before we move on into the program, are there any questions? Think about it, students. Is there anything that you would like to ask Joanna? Or her team members who are here? Anything at all about the aviation industry? So no one is looking for internships or anything like that. No one is going to use the opportunity. No questions? That's okay. I know that she's a bit busy, but hopefully she'll be able to spend a little bit more time with us, because I'm sure, like the rest of us, she really wants to see what is all of this about.
What's up, y'all? It's your girl Tess Sanchin, and you are watching Caribbean Television Network. Keep it locked. Mwah.